Welcome to Uncle's channel. Thanks for watching today. Let's continue our journey to finish every single Game Boy Color game. Today we're focusing on a game called Perfect Dark for the Game Boy Color. And holy cow, this game like really pushes the limits of what the Game Boy Color can do as far as like voice tracks and graphics and cutscenes and like the whole shebang here. The game is like really pushing the boundaries of the Game Boy Color, but at the same time, this is a really hard game. And I don't think the majority of the players who were going through the game probably ever got to experience like everything the game had to offer, just because it is so incredibly hard and punishing as you go. Now this game is not just simply a Game Boy version of the N64 game. This is actually a prequel to the N64 game. It takes place 2 years before it. And I've never like really gone through the entire story of the N64 game. I've just played like the multiplayer functions of it. But as far as like I can tell, I feel like it captures the feel of Perfect Dark pretty well, just in a Game Boy format. Now this particular game did get moved up in the queue a good bit because the mystery driver requested I cover Perfect Dark sooner than later, so naturally moved it to the top of the queue. If there's a game you want to see me cover sooner than later, let me know the name of that game in the comments down below, and just like Perfect Dark, I'll move it up in the queue. But let's go ahead and dive into Perfect Dark for the Game Boy Color. Now, I always like to start the videos off by looking at the box art for the game first, and the box art for Perfect Dark is pretty much identical to the N64 box art, except it's just simply a portion of the cover. And so instead of like showing the entire face and the gun from the N64, you just simply have the eye here, and you can see the little alien reflection in the eye because aliens are part of this game, just like they were the N64 game. And so there's not like a lot to say about the cover, except it's sort of the same as N64. You know what you're getting into here, and they probably could have done a little bit more to show you like it's a prequel to that game or something a little bit different. But overall, they knew people were coming to this game from the N64 game, so they knew their audience, and I feel like it's a good cover. Now, when you start the actual game up here, they didn't waste like any time to like try to showcase to you like how good this game can look. They have like a little laser watch from like GoldenEye or N64 Perfect Dark here, and it's like you know, engraving the Nintendo logo here, and then the Rareware like logo comes flying in after that. This is a really great looking intro, and they're really trying to display here like how far they can take the technology. And then after that, you have a really corny line. It says something like, "It's very dark, ... she's perfect, ... I mean, like, my gosh. This is so corny, and then like a little alien shadow comes in. Like a horrible intro dialogue-wise, but the music behind it, a fantastic soundtrack to go along with the intro here in the little title screen. And I wish I could say that for like the rest of the game, but the majority of this game is going to be a silent game. Like pretty much every single level is not going to even have a soundtrack. And so, but the intro here, I'll give you a little bit of a listen to it right here. But I love the opening track for this particular game. And then they continue to show off even in the most minute things, such as like when you're choosing your language for the game, instead of just simply having like a list, you get to choose the country like on a map here as far as like what language that you want. And I know it's like minor to most people, but like it's a really just a good way or creative way to like choose your language in the game. Now from here you have the little menu screen. It's very similar to like the N64 menu screen. And you can choose like New Agent, which can be your single player mode, multiplayer, which I didn't get to experience because I didn't have an ability to experience the multiplayer for this review. IB Communications allows you to use the little sensors on top of the Game Boy, probably for the multiplayer or to swap some data back and forth. And also a rumble feature if you want to have rumble pack on or off for this game. And this is one of the rare Game Boy games that actually had rumble feature, and I can imagine it being pretty darn good, especially for the gun mechanics. Now to go through single player mode, I do choose New Agent, and you get to type your name in a little keyboard here. Fits my entire name, Ogles, in there, which I always do appreciate. And then you have a little intro here between you and Daniel Carrington, who's going to be like the leader of your Institute. And you have actual voiceover samples here. And for the Game Boy, this is pretty phenomenal. I know some games, I mentioned Crystalis a few weeks back, had like one single voiceover sample for like when you picked a sword up, and it was really horrible. However, like the voice acting in this and the voice quality is actually pretty darn good for the Game Boy. Even like pick up the accents of all the characters. It's pretty impressive, especially as like you're continuing through the game and they add more and more characters into the mix.
Using non-lethal ammunition, you must complete the tasks ahead of you. Success will reward you with the license you so desire.
Now to begin the actual gameplay here, you have to go through multiple little training scenarios, and you get sort of a feel like how the gameplay works in general. But you're going to be an overhead game for probably like 80 to 90% of the game. And within this, of course, your A button shoots, B button reloads, you know, move around with your D-pad. You can click the D-pad twice in a single direction if you want to run in that direction. You can hit pause if you want to swap your weapons or reload your weapon before you go into battle here. You can also check out your missions down below or any special items that you might have picked up. And so there's actually like a good bit you can do like inside the little menu here. It reminds me a little bit of like more like a Resident Evil game to some degree, as far as like, you know, selecting your weapon from a menu and then going back out to the main game. But as you're going through the training, especially the first two parts of the training, basically sort of teaching you how to maneuver around the area, how to take out soldiers, you know, your gunfights a little bit. And also when you kill a soldier, you can go up to them and you can press select and you can search their body for like ammo and health and things like that. And you're going to want to search every single person that you take out. There's also going to be a few first person spots where you have to go through like a little hallway, do some target practice. And so it mixes the gameplay up a little bit instead of being like all like overhead, taking out soldiers. You get several of these little target practice and sort of practice your first person skills, which is going to be in the main game as well. And just to sort of give you an idea of like how hard this game is going to be, I actually died in the training, had to redo the training, at least for the first two parts here, over a second time, just because I ran out of health and ended up being killed by the soldiers in the training module. And so the game is very difficult, and the idea that you can die in the training sort of gives you an idea of like what you're expecting in the main part. But then you move into the third part of the training, it's going to teach you how to do like silent kills or sneak kills inside the game. So if you basically like approach a soldier from behind or from the side, and you're just simply walking up behind them, you can actually do a one-shot kill on them, and that's going to be like really beneficial inside the game. And I'd say like probably 60% of the kills inside the game are going to have to be done with silent kill. It's going to be a very stealthy game, but as you continue on here, the sneak mechanics don't always tend to work like perfectly. And this is even displayed like in the train itself here. Like they can't see you when you're hiding behind this little box here, but if you hide behind an oil can or an oil tank here, they can see you every single time. And there's gonna be so many instances in the game like where you feel like you should be, you know, undetectable and you're detectable, or you feel like you are detectable and you're not detectable. And so some of the sneak mechanics are not perfect, but they're still fun to execute when you actually do them correctly. Now, the final two parts of the training are basically going to teach you how to pick up laptops, defuse bombs here, and it's just simply picking up the item and then walking over to the bomb. That's how you defuse it. Also rescuing hostages and just simply escaping from the area. And when you do all of this, the training is finally done. And the reason I'm like focusing so much on the training here is because it's like a solid hour of the game. It probably took me 10 hours total to finish this game, and one solid hour at least was just going through the training to learn how to play the game. And I'm glad that they made you go through the training, but it is going to be a lot for players to sort of a learning curve to get into the game itself. So now the actual story of the game is going to begin, and Daniel Carrington, who's sort of our leader or our boss inside the 00 agent or the secret agent facility, he tells me of a cyborg manufacturing plant that's in the jungle, and he wants me to go basically investigate and destroy this particular cyborg manufacturing plant. And once again, the voice acting is top notch, but that is nothing compared to the cutscenes we're going to get here in just a second, which is very much almost like watching a movie. And yes, I know it's like not actual movie quality. I'm talking about like an 8-bit version of a movie, because what you're going to have here is you're going to have actual scenes of like, you know, flying into the jungle, dropping off of the helicopter, doing like all the main character introductions throughout the game, such as like me and Daniel and Max Danger and Mink Hunter and Octopus Prime, who has got to be a reference to the James Bond villain as well as Optimus Prime. There's no way they didn't combine those two together for this. But like, holy cow, this is an amazing intro for a Game Boy game. It is very much of a theatrical scene. They purposely tried to make it look like a movie, and I feel like they really did their job well as far as like making this game as flashy as possible. But now that I'm in the jungle in the first level here, I do check out my missions, and my missions say I need to locate and destroy the cyborg factory, which I already knew, and I also need to defeat the Mink Hunter, who I'm actually not going to encounter for like another 2 hours inside the game, but it's still my main mission here. Now, as I'm journeying through the jungle itself, it's pretty linear as far as, you know, just simply following the pathway here, taking out the enemies as you go, and then when you finally enter into the building here, it's also going to be pretty darn linear. And as you're going through both of these areas here, it's in your best interest to be as slow as possible and as stealthy as possible to snipe out as many of the enemies as you can. However, like sometimes it's really difficult to actually be stealthy, because as you're like walking into the screen here, as soon as like the enemy, like you see their feet on the edge of the screen, they notice you immediately and they come right at you to attack you. And so there's a lot of instances like where you actually cannot sneak up on enemies, and that's going to make the game really hard because you run out of health and you have to die and you have to restart the entire level over again. And so your best bet is just simply to like memorize the locations of the enemies, so like your next try you're going to do better. But the levels are going to be so long here, it's going to be difficult to memorize it. And so I guess long story short, the game is very difficult with the mechanics that they give you, as far as like they want you to be stealthy, but they're not going to allow you the opportunity to be stealthy inside the level. And health itself, you can of course collect it off of the bodies that you kill, and ammo as well, but you're going to run out of health pretty darn fast. I died multiple times in this first level of the game. The only saving grace in this level is when you finally get to machine gun, and the machine gun allows you to have like obviously a multi-shot against the enemies, and you can take out the enemies a whole lot faster, so when they do detect you, you can actually kill them off before they can basically take away like half your health. And at the close level, you do get on a raft, and it's going to now swap the gameplay 100%, and now it's going to be sort of like a NES light gun game to a degree. And so as you're going down the little raft here, you have all these little soldiers you have to, shoot with your little target, take them out. You can shoot little ammo crates that are falling down. You can shoot like little health crates that are falling down. You can shoot grenade crates that are falling down as well. So there's like plenty of upgrades you can do here, and it's actually a really fun little section of the game. It's significantly easier than the top-down part, and it'll probably only take you like 1 or 2 tries to go through the raft area. And if you do fail, it's going to restart you back at the beginning of the raft, and so you don't have to go through like the entire first level again. So it acts like a little natural checkpoint for you at the same time. But this level here, like, I have to say, like, it's flashy, but it's also a lot of fun. And then you go into the second overhead level part, and this can be a great deal easier than the first one because you can actually like shoot over walls, and like the enemies can't come to you. It allows you to be more of a almost more cheesy in a way as you're going through it. And also in this area, you're going to pick up the shotgun, and the shotgun, like, holy cow, this is a powerful weapon in the game. And not only is it powerful, it actually has the feel of a very energetic weapon at the same time. I mean, look at the blast radius of when it takes the enemies out here. Every single weapon that you pick up in the game actually feels like the weapon like you would expect inside of an actual shooter game that's on like a major platform. You wouldn't expect a Game Boy to replicate the mechanics as well as it does, but I'm telling you, the shotgun is a very powerful weapon. And when you pick up the shotgun ammo, maybe it's just me, but like when I first picked it up, I thought I picked up like a pair of slippers, and I was like, what is it going to allow me to sneak around the level a bit easier, which would have been a pretty sweet mechanic in the game because you're so easily detected. But I was wrong. It's actually your shotgun shells that you're going to use to refill the shotgun. And anytime I have the shotgun, that is the weapon of choice, and I use it for the vast majority of the game anytime I pick it up. Now, after you finish that overhead part, you go into another change of game style here. You get in a little Jeep, and you begin to race down this little roadway, and there's other Jeeps and tanks that are trying to attack you. You have a little turret on top, and so you're trying to blow up the enemy vehicles. You're trying to get to the end of the level here, and you're trying not to crash into any of the walls. And so you have like a damage meter, but also you have like your distance as far as like you have to go. It's up listed on the right-hand side as well. And honestly, it reminds me of like an old NES game, sort of like a Spy Hunter, I think is what it was. And man, I just really do love the overhead style here. And I love like the variations in the gameplay that they're going. The overhead part is obviously like the main crux of the game. But these little side missions, these little different variations, man, they're just a lot of fun. And it's a really good idea on the developer's part to mix these in to sort of break up the pace. Then we're back to overhead again, and honestly the overhead is getting easier as you progress in the game because you're getting better weapon upgrades, you're understanding like the stealth mechanics, you're understanding how to cheese people by shooting over walls and such. And honestly, if you just simply stick with your more powerful weapons like the shotgun or the machine gun as you're walking around, and anybody you happen to trigger, you can go in and just take them out immediately. And if you see someone that's not triggered, then you swap over to your pistol and you can get the stealth kill that way. And so once you have better weapons, the stealth mechanics do work a heck of a lot better because you can sort of time out like who you want to take out with which weapon, and it makes a whole lot more sense as far as like how the game is developed. Yes, I still think they should have made it where you can sort of see the enemies and see which ones you can take out before they start charging at you. But at the same time, if you have the more powerful weapons, you can sort of pick and choose which one you want to use. But after you finish up that part of the overhead, then you're going to change game styles again, and now we get a third-person shooter. And so you're behind Joanna Dark here, and you're essentially aiming at a helicopter that's trying to blow you up. And of course, in order to destroy the helicopter, you have a little target here, and you can just simply move back and forth, left and right, and your target will stay. And you can simply go vertical up and down, but if you press B, you can move your target wherever you want onto the screen. And it sounds like it's a little confusing, but truth be told, it's more intuitive than it sounds. But as you're doing this, you just simply have to blow up the far ends of the guns of the helicopter, then the rocket launchers, and you can focus on the cockpit. And it's really a nice little change of pace. It's hard at first, but once you understand the controls, it's a very easy boss to take out. And then there's another change of game style here. I'm telling you, like, the game has many, many different game modes that you're going to go through. And this is probably honestly like my favorite one because I just really enjoy a good sniping level. And within this sniping level, if you take out people in a certain order, guards are going to see a dead body, they're going to alert and they're going to start firing at you, and then you fail the mission. So your goal here is just simply to take people out one by one in an order that you don't think anyone's going to notice the body that's fallen. And when someone does notice a body, you have to take them out pretty much immediately before they can alert the rest of the camp here. And so it's very much of a strategy, like trying to think out how are people walking back and forth, who can see what area, how fast you're going to be on, sniping people out. This is a really cool game mode, and I wish they had done like more sniping missions. This is the only one inside the entire game here. But man, they could have like done an entire subsection of the game with just this mechanic, and it would have been a blast to play. And then we meet our next friend through our dialogue here. It's going to be Max Danger, and Max Danger tells us that the Mink Hunter has a factory, and we need to go into the factory and basically attach C4 explosives to all the liquid canisters in order to blow the factory up. And if that doesn't sound like the facility in GoldenEye, I don't know what does. Maybe perhaps this was originally going to be like a James Bond game done by Rare, and that was the overall level here, and they sort of pasted it from, or copied and pasted it from a potential GoldenEye port to the Game Boy into the Perfect Dark. I don't know, but the level is going to sound a heck of a lot like the facility. Even the look of our next overhead level is going to look a lot like the facilities, with like the colors and like the railways. I mean, to me, this feels like it could have been the facility level of GoldenEye in a Game Boy port. As I'm journeying through the level, I'm searching for all the little liquid canisters to attach the C4 on. You'd have to unlock some of the doors by doing these very, very basic puzzles. Like you have to just simply remember the pattern of the color order. Very, very easy to open up different doors, but you'd have to find them all. And as you're journeying through here, I use the shotgun for the vast majority of this level, all the way to the point where I'm like completely out of shotgun ammo, and I have to swipe over to the machine gun. And then, of course, when I get more shotgun ammo back, I go back to the shotgun because it is clearly the best weapon inside the game. Even like when you pick up the rocket launcher, which is obviously a one-shot kill as well, I prefer the shotgun just simply because, I don't know, I feel like I have more ammo with it. I feel like I have more accuracy, at least in my mind anyway. And so I prefer the shotgun even when I get to rocket launcher. And then you get to the boss of the level, who's going to be a giant cyborg spider. And like, holy cow, this is a fantastic boss, because what you have to do here is you have to wait till the spider goes off to the far right or the far left. You have to get behind this little laser gun, shoot the laser out at the spider, and you can watch his health slowly disappear at the top. And it's not a super hard level, but it's still a really, really fun boss battle inside the game. And I also loved it, like as you were journeying through the, I'm going to call it the facility here, you could see like little pieces of the cyborg being built throughout. And then you get to finally see the cyborg like in its true form at the end. And a great boss, and you're actually going to get to fight the spider cyborg again later on. But man, this is just a really, really creative game, and they just did all kinds of different game modes. But after you've defeated the spider cyborg here, you go back into the overhead for just a little bit, and then you're going to finally get to encounter the Mink Hunter here. And he's a, I don't know, a interesting little fella. He's going to fight you over a lava pit, and he's throwing these ninja stars at you. And you can also throw ninja stars back at him. And yours is very weird. It's like a flesh-looking ninja star. Something out of like the Evil Dead or something. I don't know. It's a weird-looking little coloring choice for that. But anyway, so you're throwing it back and forth across the lava pit. And this is actually one of the harder boss fights in the game, one of the harder game modes. It took me several tries to finally defeat the Mink Hunter in this, just simply because he seems to hit you like every single time, and you don't seem to hit him every single time with your little ninja star here. So it took me a lot of tries to finally defeat him. But after you've taken the Mink Hunter out, your mission is officially over. You get to talk to Daniel Carrington again. He tells you, you've escaped successfully, all this, and you tell Daniel that while you were escaping, you saw a strange aircraft being shot down from the sky. And he does some, research on his side. He figures out it's a UFO, and he wants you to go investigate the UFO crash site. And so that's our second mission of the game. Really, truth be told, there's only like 2 missions in this game. And so our second mission here, we're going to be investigating the UFO crash site. And in the little cutscene here, you can actually see the little, wreckage of the UFO as you're going over here. You go into the first building, and you get to talk to Max Danger, who's your helper once again. And he's going to tell you to do the following mission here. You're going to have to find 30 key cards, find the laptop, switch off the power matrix, head down or download the crash data from the mainframe, and then access the crash site. So you have a lot like sort of going on in the background. But at the same time, like these levels are pretty darn linear. So if you just simply go through and like kill off every guard and sort of explore the entire area before going into the next area, you're going to find like everything that you need to find. And the guards in this area are definitely different than the ones you've had thus far. When you search their bodies, you're going to notice that half of them are sort of like a alien type creature, which obviously corresponds to, investigating an alien crash site here. And so this is very much a futuristic military type base level. And it's going to have the exact same gameplay mechanics of the overhead view here. You know, use your main guns, your shotguns, your main gun, machine guns as a backup. You do get another little like a phaser gun at some point. It sort of like melts their body. But by the time I got that, I'd already killed off everybody, so I never actually got to use it. But for the most part, all the overhead levels are going to play exactly the same, and you just sort of have to, you know, navigate the little maze of sorts as you're going through before advancing. And I do want to reiterate one more time as far as like the overhead levels go. They are very difficult, even when you do have the, you know, the strategy of using your main weapon while you're walking around, swapping over to your pistol for your stealth mechanics when you see somebody that you can. These levels are incredibly difficult. You get spotted all the time, and the health is nowhere near plentiful enough in order to actually defeat the level on your first try. Every one of these levels is going to take multiple attempts to finally actually conquer the level, and it gets pretty darn tough. But once you've accomplished all the core missions here, you finally escape out the back, and you are ambushed, and all you have is your machine gun here. As you're trying to you know, defend yourself, you run out of ammo, and you don't have the option to actually refill or reload your gun here. And so you're sort of running around. Eventually you get shot down, and it's actually part of the game. Like, I was worried when I was, you know, losing here. I was like, all this progress can be lost, but no, it's actually part of the game. And you get captured, you get a little cutscene again, being captured. Now you're put on a boat, and you're like in a jail cell here. But like, this is the worst security jail cell I've ever seen, because all you do is you walk out, neither guard is looking at you. You walk across the hallway, you pick up the pistol, you come back, and you just simply snipe out, or not snipe out, do a execution kill on both guards, and they never even know what's happening, even when it's like the person right behind them is passing away. And it's a very corny scene, but at the same time, it does give you the spy thrill as you're going. But as you're journeying through the little boat here, essentially, like, you have almost no health, you have almost no weapons, no ammo, and every single kill is going to be a stealth kill, and you're going to slowly rebuild your health up, slowly get your weapons back, and you're going to be going through the boat here, searching for the alien spacecraft. So after they captured you, they had to put the alien spacecraft on this boat, and you have to go through all the levels of the boat here, and you finally find the alien spacecraft, and the alien asks you to self-destruct the spacecraft. I assume to try to keep the alien secrets intact. But right before I can escape, I do get an encounter with Octopus Prime. And of course, there's going to be another like helicopter level here of sorts. He's got his own little chopper, little octopus arms are going to come down and try to grab you. And you essentially have to defeat him just like you did the last helicopter level. You know, focus on destroying the little octopus arms and focus on the rocket launchers to the far right. And just slowly but surely you're going to be able to attack him. And you sort of have to do the same thing over and over until he's finally passed away. These levels here are a different gameplay strategy, but it's still, like I said earlier, a really fun mechanic in the game that, you know, divides it up a little bit as you go. Now from here you're going to get in your own helicopter, and now you have a little chase scene. Your helicopter is racing across the ocean. A little boat here is trying to shoot you down with rocket launchers, and it's probably the easiest level in the entire game, especially for so late in the game. But after you finish that, of course, the boat does blow up. The alien spacecraft is going to sink to the bottom of the ocean. You talk to Daniel. He says that Data is probably going to end up going down to the ocean to retrieve whatever is left of the alien spacecraft. And while this whole conversation is taking place, then your headquarters to Carry-On Institute here is going to be attacked. And this cutscene here is once again just phenomenal for what the Game Boy Color can do. Shows the soldiers going into the facility. I mean, it's really something as far as like the graphics that they've designed for these cutscenes. And it's hard to believe they have this and voice acting all in one of those little itty bitty Game Boy cartridges. But then your final level here is going to be inside the Carry-On Institute. And your job is to essentially defuse these different bombs on every single level to try to prevent it from blowing up. And as soon as you pick up the laptop, the timer is going to start. And so on the first level, I actually figured out the strategy. If you go through and you simply take everybody out, you know, kill them off, and then you pick up the laptop, the timer is going to start. You can just make your way straight to the bomb diffuser, defuse the bomb on the first level. But then when you go to the second floor, you're not as lucky, and the timer already starts. And you have to fight your way through, killing off all the bad guys and finding the diffuser before the timer runs out. But luckily for you, if you do end up passing away or get killed here, you do get to start that entire floor over. You don't have to like go back to the very, very beginning of the entire level. You just go back to that particular floor and try again. And this is a very forgiving part of the game, more forgiving than most of the other game as far as like early in the game. Not as much, you know, retracing through your footsteps to finally finish it up here. Now, when you get to the very top floor, this is an incredibly difficult floor. You had a minute, 15 seconds to defuse that bomb, but much, much harder. You have to actually rescue a hostage, then go into a separate room, defuse the bomb beside Daniel in his little chair here, And then when you go out the door, you have the final boss in the game. And even though it has a good cutscene at the beginning of it, it's not going to be any different than any of the other third-person shooting levels. You simply have, once again, like a helicopter up there, and you just simply have to take it out left to right, and then blow up the cockpit. And then once the cockpit's blown up, then you can blow out the engines. And of course, that makes the helicopter blow up, and you've, of course, defeated the final boss. These third-person levels are not going to vary a lot in their, strategy-wise, but they're all equally fun just because they're not like overly difficult, but they do require specific strategy, and it's a good part of the game. And of course, once you finish this mission up, Daniel says, "Job well done, take it easy." We volunteer ourselves for future missions, which will of course be the N64 game later on down the road. And at this point, the credits begin to roll, and the credits come across a nice little computer typing screen, which fits with the aesthetics of the game itself. But let's take a look at the game as an overall. Overall, this game has so much stuff like packed into it, and I really did like this game a great deal. However, this game is extraordinarily hard, especially in the earlier levels, and I feel like the majority of players who like bought this game back in the day probably never got to experience, I'd say, like 80% of what this game has to offer, which is a real shame because it has so many different creative modes, different gameplay mechanics like the Jeep or the airship, or taking out the helicopter, or doing like the little NES gotcha game, where you're taking people out on your little raft here. And even like the overall gameplay itself, doing like the stealth mechanics and going through and acting like a true spy. There are a lot of really fun parts in this game, but the game is just so incredibly hard at the beginning when you're trying to navigate the overhead levels and take out the soldiers before they see you. And some of the stuff feels like it's a little bit unfair because they can see you before you see them. They'll come running at you. Until you get like really good weapon upgrades, the game is incredibly difficult. And so I do feel like that's a small flaw in the game. But the only other flaw I would say, like in the game itself, is like a lack of soundtrack throughout the majority of it. And yes, I know like you're trying to add to the, I guess the creepiness, or maybe not creepiness, but the atmosphere of the game by allowing it to be silent, more tension, I guess. But by doing that, like it sort of makes the levels feel a little bit more on the bland side because there's no excitement or atmospheric music to go along with it. But overall, this is a really fun game. If you have the patience to get through the first few levels, really understand the gameplay mechanics, you're going to have a blast, journeying through the game, find all the different game modes, seeing the cutscenes, experience a pretty decent story as you go. The story's not like phenomenal, but it's enjoyable enough. I feel like this is a really good Game Boy game if you have the patience to actually work through it. It took me, like I said, probably about 10 hours to finish the entire game up. And I'd probably give it on a scale of 1 to 10. I'd probably give this game a 7. If it was a little bit easier, or the difficulty was just simply more consistent, because there's like some really easy parts and some really hard parts and easy parts. It doesn't just sort of scale up. It's sort of like a little wave as you go. I feel like if they could have corrected the difficulty in the game, I feel like it would have been a solid 8 and possibly even a 9. But overall, as it stands, I'm going to give the game a 7, just simply because the difficulty feels a little unfair at points, and I feel like the majority of players are never going to get to finish the entire experience here. But overall, I did enjoy the game. I look forward to more games in this similar game style. I know there's the Metal Gear games, I know there's Resident Evil games, the Alone in the Dark games, and so there's a lot of ones that are very similar to this. I'm anxious to see how they compare to Perfect Dark, if they're going to live up to the standard that's been set thus far. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos listed up above. If there's a game you want to see me cover sooner than later, let me know the name of that game in the comments down below. And as always, go out there, find a great game to play. Simply have a great rest of the day.